Hi patrons, it's Larissa here again. I'm not doing unboxing today. I am going to tell you about my favorite books that I read in 2020. These aren't going to be necessarily books that have been published in 2020, but they are books that I read in 2020 and really enjoyed. So let's get right into it. And the first one I have here is Milltown by Keri Arsenault. And this book caught my eye because I grew up in a paper mill town in Pennsylvania. This is a paper mill town in Maine, very small town, and it's a very layered nonfiction account of the town that this woman grew up in. I did recognize a lot of the things from her mill town, the pyramids of sawdust and the pollution in the river. A lot of that actually sounded very familiar to me. So this was a really good read for me. And it's just a really good book in general. I highly recommend that one. Another nonfiction, this one's a memoir, How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. And it's his story of being a young black gay man in the American South in relatively contemporary times and all the things that he went through. It's really a very haunting, excellent memoir. I highly recommend that one as well. And a fiction book, The Borrower by Rebecca Makkai. Rebecca Makkai also wrote The Great Believers, and she will be coming for our virtual Galena Lit Fest on January 26th. And I have not read The Great Believers yet. That's next on my list, but I read The Borrower. It's the main character is a children's librarian, which I am not a children's librarian, but a lot of the library things also relate to me and my job. But what ends up happening in this book is that she's kind of unhappy with where she is. She's kind of lost and not really actively looking for a new path, but knows that it needs to come eventually. And she makes friends with a little boy who comes to a lot of the library programs. She finds out that his parents are barring him from checking out a lot of different books, and she fears that what they're doing is putting him in conversion therapy, that they think that he's gay, and they're very fundamental Christians, and she fears that he's going to a conversion camp, and he starts to act out, he starts to have a lot of behavioral issues that he didn't have before, and she's concerned. And one morning she comes into work and he is in the library before it's open. Clearly he slept there overnight. She bundles him up and puts him in her car, but he doesn't want to go home. So she keeps driving and she doesn't stop. So they go on a crazy adventure. I mean, she kidnaps him, but in a way he kind of kidnaps her also, and they both discover things about themselves along the way. Really interesting, unique book. I enjoyed it very much. I'm excited to read The Great Believers, and I'm really excited to meet her on January 26th when she talks for LitFest. Another nonfiction, Spying on Whales. This is a book written by Nick Pyenson. Nick Pyenson is a marine paleontologist for the Smithsonian Institute. There's a lab actually at the Smithsonian Institute named the Pyenson Lab, and they study marine paleobiology there. So this book is divided into 3 sections. It's the past, present, and future of whales. He mainly talks about rorqual whales, which are the big baleen whales with like the throat pouches. He talks about their past. He talks about digs that he's been on where he's found out really exciting things about the past of whales. Whales have a really interesting paleontological past where they were in the ocean and had evolved legs and left the ocean and then went back to the ocean, and they are the whales that we see today. And then he talks about the present, how whales are doing now, some of the conservation efforts that are going on, and how the whales that we know came from the whales that he digs up on his digs. And then he talks about the future of whales, which is really, really fascinating. Whales have been evolving for such a very long time, and they have such specialized skills and biology that is just so much more specialized than what humans have evolved. Very interesting book. A lot of science writers tend to kind of write over the head of layman's such as myself. But he really did a good job of making it all understandable and interesting. And then my favorite book that I read in 2020 was The Bird King by Willow Wilson. This was fantastic. It takes place in 1492 in Granada, Spain, just as the Sultan of the Islamic Caliphate is turning over Granada to Ferdinand and Isabella in what is now Spain at that point. The main character is Fatima. She's a Circassian concubine to the Sultan. She was born in the palace and raised to be a concubine. She doesn't have a terrible life. She wants to be free, but also she has a very cush life in this palace. She's never worn shoes. She's never walked farther than from one end of the palace to the other. She is taken care of in the harem. And her best friend, Hassan, is the palace map maker. He's also homosexual, and he has this uncanny ability to draw maps of places he's never seen, and also to alter geography and buildings with his map making skills. And both of these things, being homosexual and having magical abilities, isn't really okay in the Islamic Caliphate, but it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell sort of thing. Also, he's useful to the Sultan, so they leave him alone and let him do his thing. But then the Inquisition shows up with the representatives from Ferdinand and Isabella for the treaty signatures. And they find out about Hassan, so Fatima goes in the dead of night and takes him away from the palace with the help of a jinn, and they go on an adventure to an island from an epic poem they used to read as children. So it's a fantastic book. I fell in love with both Fatima and Hassan and the jinn, whose name is Vikram. And I just wanted it to be so much longer. I love learning about Spain and Granada. Magic in it is kind of understated. It's based on Islamic folklore. So it was just a type of fantasy that I never read before, and I really loved it. Well, those are my favorite books of 2020. I'd love to hear what your favorite books of 2020 are. You can feel free to post that in comments down below or on Facebook or wherever you're watching this. And if you like this video, if you want to see more videos like this with librarians here talking about books that we love or movies that we love or anything else, we won't know that unless you like this video, subscribe to our channel, ring the bell for notifications, leave comments, all those sorts of things. So thank you for watching and have a great day.